Hello, gentlemen. We are now in Chapter 7. Listen to learn. Listening is one of the most important activities we engage in. People spend close to 50% of their waking time listening. For college students, the number is almost 90%. Most people realize that it is important to listen carefully when teachers lecture, friends talk, parents or advisors provide information, bosses explain things, or radio commentators report the news. The exercises and activities in this chapter will help you improve your ability to listen effectively in all these situations. Have you ever told a friend, child, parent, spouse, or anyone at all, you don't listen? Has anyone ever told you in frustration, why don't you listen? Chances are you have experienced both of these situations. Why is this? Why aren't people better listeners? Before we examine this question more closely, it's important to objectively evaluate your own listening skills and target the specific areas you would like to improve. Now, let's go for a self-evaluation. How well you listen. Complete the listening self-evaluation. Take a piece of paper and write down your answers. There are 14 habits given here. What are your listening habits? Tick either often or sometimes or seldom or never. Now that you have evaluated how well you listen to others, you probably realize you have some room for improvement. The following section describes some of the most common ineffective listening habits and how to overcome them. Firstly, being distracted by a speaker's appearance or delivery. Secondly, deciding the topic is boring in advance. Thirdly, faking attention. Fourthly, being distracted by surroundings. Fifthly, concentrating on unimportant details. And finally, reacting emotionally to trigger words. Now, let's do an activity. Take a piece of paper. Write the letter A or B or C or D or E or F depending on the nature of the bad habit given. Now let's check your answers. Got all correct? Now let's do 2 listening exercises. Let's check how well you listen attentively and get the answers. Take a piece of paper and write down your answers.
Chapter 7. Listen to learn. Page 142. Activity 1. Part 1. Listen to the passage, Lying, Studies in Deception.
Lying well is a special talent which is not easily acquired, says a University of California psychologist who has studied lying for 20 years. Good liars must be natural actors, have charming manners, and be able to manage their expressions. Experts report that even with standard polygraph tests, it can be very difficult to detect particularly good liars. Polygraph or lie detector tests are used about 1 million times a year by private companies, police departments, and federal agencies, including the military and the CIA. There is much controversy over the accuracy of polygraph tests. Over 4,000 articles and books have been published which insist that polygraph tests are reliable. However, many experts are convinced that the lie detectors can be fooled by biting one's tongue or using drugs, hypnosis, or biofeedback. Throughout history, people have tried to detect lies. In ancient India, a favorite method was the donkey tail system. People suspected of lying were sent into a dark hut to pull the tail of a donkey inside. They were told the donkey would bray if the person pulling the tail were guilty. The suspected liars didn't know that the donkey's tail had been covered with soot. The guilty parties would be the ones without soot on their hands.
Page 142. Activity 1. Part 3. Listen to the passage again.
Lying well is a special talent which is not easily acquired, says a University of California psychologist who has studied lying for 20 years. Good liars must be natural actors, have charming manners, and be able to manage their expressions. Experts report that even with standard polygraph tests, it can be very difficult to detect particularly good liars. Polygraph, or lie detector tests, are used about 1 million times a year by private companies, police departments, and federal agencies, including the military and the CIA. There is much controversy over the accuracy of polygraph tests. Over 4,000 articles and books have been published which insist that polygraph tests are reliable. However, many experts are convinced that the lie detectors can be fooled by biting one's tongue or using drugs, hypnosis, or biofeedback. Throughout history, people have tried to detect lies. In ancient India, a favorite method was the donkey tail system. People suspected of lying were sent into a dark hut to pull the tail of a donkey inside. They were told the donkey would bray if the person pulling the tail were guilty. The suspected liars didn't know that the donkey's tail had been covered with soot. The guilty parties would be the ones without soot on their hands.
Now, it's time to check your answers. So, that's all for listening now. Let's continue with the presentation project. The project for this chapter is impromptu speech. What is an impromptu speech? An impromptu speech is a speech you make without advance preparation. You have no prior notice of the topic, nor do you have much, if any, time to prepare notes. However, good impromptu speakers know many different ways to organize their thoughts on the spur of the moment. They have the ability to quickly review possible organizational patterns as soon as they hear their topic. Being familiar with such patterns will help you choose the best way to organize your ideas for your specific topic and make it easier for you to think of things to say and examples to present. Your challenge is to make a 2 to 3 minute impromptu speech on a topic your teacher will give you just before your speech. You might be assigned any of the following topics or another one. Now, let's listen to Simon's model impromptu speech. Listen to it carefully and look at the organization and the flow of ideas. Check carefully how he makes his speech interesting.
Listen to Simon's model impromptu speech.
I'll bet everyone in this room is an addict, or knows one. That's right, I said addict. Before you get angry with me for calling you addicts, please let me explain. My topic is addictions. When we hear this word, we usually think of harmful substances like drugs, alcohol, or tobacco. We forget there are many other kinds of addictions. I'd now like to talk about different types of addictions, some good and some bad. First, I will talk about some bad addictions. Alcoholism is a dangerous addiction. People who are alcoholics become very dependent on drinking. They might drive while drunk and hurt themselves or innocent people. Alcohol also causes physical problems, like liver problems. It is a very unhealthy addiction. Another addiction, which is bad for your health, is related to food. Some people are addicted to food. They can't stop eating junk food or lots of sweets like ice cream and chocolate. Food addicts eat too much food for their body type. Food addictions can also be very unhealthy. Overeating can cause obesity, heart problems, diabetes, and many other health problems. The last bad addiction I will talk about isn't physically unhealthy, but it gets lots of people into trouble. I am talking about an addiction to shopping. Shopping addicts buy things they don't need or want. They never seem to have enough clothes, DVDs, or shoes, for example. Shopping addicts often can't afford what they buy and they get into debt. Sometimes the shopping addiction gets so bad that shopping addicts have to declare bankruptcy and ruin their credit. Now, I will tell you about some good addictions. First, exercise. Many people are addicted to exercising. They wake up early each morning before work or school and work out in the gym. They never miss a day because exercise makes them feel so good. They are simply addicted to it. Hobbies can be another good addiction. I have friends who are addicted to photography, stamp collecting, and scrapbooking. They work on their hobbies every single free minute they have. Being creative makes them feel good about themselves. Their hobbies relax them and take their minds off the stress of work and school. Reading is the other good addiction I would like to mention. I am a reading addict. I like science fiction and biographies about famous athletes. I read when I am riding the bus. I read when I am waiting in line. I read when I am waiting in a doctor's office for an appointment. Reading helps my vocabulary. It teaches me many new things. I can never be bored if I am reading a good book. As you can see, not all addictions are bad. Anyone who thinks they are is barking up the wrong tree. So, find a good addiction and tell people with pride, I am an addict. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening to my speech.